I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Will you tell me about the first time you met grandmother?
Oh, met 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 Barbara.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, I can. Uh, I come out of the army in 1946 in October, and I didn't get discharged till November of '46, but I had some days. I had 46 days uh, that uh, that they paid me for before I got discharged after I come home. And I got discharged in Fort Sam Houston, Texas. And when I come home in October of 1946, I didn't have no vehicle. And Daddy only had a 2-ton truck. And I'd been home about a week, I guess. And I said to Daddy, I said, Daddy, could I use your truck to go to Chatsworth tonight? And he said, yeah, you can have it to go to Chatsworth. And so I took his 2-ton truck and I stopped over at Eton and had to get some gas at Eton in it. See, we lived up here on 225. And so I picked up Charlie Carnes. He was there at the station. I knew him before I went in the Army. And he lived at Eton where I did. And he's sitting there at the station. He said, are you going to Chatsworth? And I said, yeah. And he said, could I ride with you? I said, yeah, you can ride with me. I was by myself in Daddy's truck. And so we went to Chatsworth. We went in the Fort View restaurant there on Main Street of Chatsworth. And it was really crowded. People was in there eating, and there wasn't no place to sit. And there's 2 girls sitting there in the booth, and it was big enough for 4 people. And so I walked up to the booth, and I said, there wasn't no place. There was people standing up. And I said, scoot over, little girl, and let me sit down. To Barbara, I never had seen her before.
Uh-huh.
She scooted over, and I sat down, and Charlie, he sat down with that other girl. And there's 4 of us sitting in that booth there, which that's all it was for. And that's how I met Barbara. And so we got us something to eat, I think. And so I said to Barbara, I said, well, y'all want to go riding around? And they said, yeah, they want to go riding around. So Barbara, she wasn't even 15-year-old, I don't think. And I was 20. I think she was almost.
Almost.
Well, this was in October.
Yeah.
And her birthday was in November.
Uh-huh.
And so we got in Daddy's 2-ton Dodge truck, and it had a small cab. And there's 4 of us sitting in the front. And they said, oh, that was really jammed up together.
I bet you like that.
In that small, yeah, and they liked that. You know? So we did too, I reckon, and Charlie Carnes. So we rode around that 2-ton truck. I don't know where all we went now. And I don't know, it just, Barbara just appealed to me, and more than anybody else at that time, I guess. And so when we got ready to take her home, she lived on 4th Avenue with Big Mama in front of the American Legion building. And so I took her home, and I asked her for a date the next day.
Aww.
And so she said, I said, how about 10 o'clock? And she said, that'd be okay. And so I didn't know whether I could get Daddy's truck the next day.
Did
10
you?
o'clock.
Did you get it?
Yeah, and so I come on home and I asked Dad if I could use his truck next day. And he said, "You want to use my truck today?" And I said, "Yes, Sunday." And I didn't tell him I had a date with a girl at Chatsworth, and so I went down. I told her to meet her at the M&M Cafe. There's 2 or 3 cafes there on Main Street back then. The M&M was right there where the Ford place used to be. It's a larger restaurant, and so I told her to meet her there at 10 o'clock the next day. And so there's 4 or 5 girls in there. She hadn't got there. There's 4 or 5 girls in there, and I knew one of them, and I was talking to them. And Barbara come in the door there, the restaurant. She seen me in there talking to them girls, and she turned and run out.
That sounds like something grandmother would do.
She turned, run up the court. And I run out the door and called her halfway up the courthouse hill.
Did you get her to come back?
No, she wouldn't go back in there. She knowed them girls, she said. And so I didn't go back in either. I just got her in the truck and we went out to her house. And she had that record, that wind-up record player in the living room there where they lived. And we started playing that record player, and we started dancing in the living room.
Aww.
She liked to dance back then, Barbara did.
Oh yeah.
She's just 15-year-old.
Yeah.
But I thought she was older. She told me that she's 16, I think.
I bet.
Yeah, I think she did.
Well,
and of course, I was just 20 then, too.
Well, and times were different, but, little did you know.
We started going together, and we went together about 2 years. And I went to different places looking for jobs and things, and working different places. I had an Army buddy that lived in Atlanta. He was from Atlanta, and he worked for the Acoustic Engineers in Atlanta. And he come up here to see me, and he said he didn't have a car, but I'd bought a car in Chattanooga, a Dodge. I'd like to have it now. It was really comfortable, 4-door sedan. And so he said, I can get you a job where he worked in Atlanta for the Acoustic Engineers. And so he did, and is traveling over 5 states and putting up soundproofing in theaters and things. And so we worked in Atlanta for a while, and then we had a job in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, in the Carolina Theater up there. And we stayed up there a week and worked up there a week, but I didn't like it. I just didn't.
And you were dating grandmother at this time?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I
long
wanted
distance.
to come back home, and I quit my job down there and did. I come back to Mother and Daddy, and I started helping Daddy. Then, and he had a lot of things going on. Daddy did, and he had 3 or 4 jobs with a big truck, and he's making good money, and had 2 stores. He owned Fashion up here, and he had a store up there where he built a house on. He had 2 farms up there.
Wow.
Had 100 acres on one side of the 225 and 40 on the other side. And he built a big store up there. And he built a grist mill and a hammer mill.
Uh-huh.
And he had a big truck. He had 3 or 4 regular jobs with the big truck. And I started helping him
Uh-huh.
and running the hammer mill and the grist mill when he's gone. And Mother was running, and BW,
Uh-huh.
my brother, was running the store when he wasn't there too. And we was real busy.
Yeah. But then you got to be with grandmother, or you got to be with Barbara.
And then I went to West Virginia and got a job with the C&O Railroad, and I stayed up there about 3 months working for the C&O. And Barbara, I don't know how she got my address. We lived in the YMCA, me and Wesley and JD, my 2 uncles.
Uh-huh.
They was up there working too. And we was living in the YMCA up there and eating there too.
Wow.
And it was a good place to live.
But grandmother
And
got your
she
address.
She got my address. I don't know how she got it.
You never
And
asked?
she wrote me a letter and
Oh.
told me to come back to Georgia. Said,
Aw.
I want you to come back to Georgia. And so I did. I was wanting to quit anyway. I didn't like the jobs that I had or got. It was a good job though, really. I'd got stepped up 2 or 3 times. I was an Alamite in them big locomotives, some big steam engines.
Uh-huh.
I was an Alamite man. And had one of them big things I'd push around Alamite, all the working joints of the steam engines. But
So
anyway,
what year did you move back?
Well, I went to work on New Year's Day in 1948. Got paid time and a half for the first day of work.
Wow.
Because it's a holiday.
Yeah.
We worked 16 hours a day if you wanted to.
Woo.
Got paid time and a half for the extra 8 hours you worked.
Uh-huh.
And I remember the first check, they paid every 2 weeks, and I made $215 the first 2 weeks of work. And I thought that was big money, back
Yeah.
then. And but anyway, she sent me a letter wanting me to come back to Georgia, and of course I didn't care too much for any jobs. I just like to be on my own, I think, more than anything.
Uh-huh.
And so I come back home and I went to the Fort Theater in Chatsworth, and Barbara was in the Fort Theater there watching the show. She loved them Western shows, well, all kinds of shows.
Uh-huh.
She liked to watch them. And I met her in the theater there. And
Yeah.
we started going together then. And that was probably, I'd known her over a year at that time.
Uh-huh.
And then we got married on September the 10th, 1948.
Do you remember asking her to marry you?
Huh?
Do you remember proposing to her?
No.
No.
I remember.
Asking her to marry you.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
How did you do it?
I don't remember how I done it. I just said, well, let's get married. Or something like that.
And she said, sure.
Yeah. And so Paul, my brother, was going with Geraldine at the same time. And I said, well, Paul, you and Geraldine, me and Barbara's going to get married. I said, do you and Geraldine want to get married at the same time we do? He said, I don't know. I'll see Geraldine. He did. So they got married the same time we did.
You had a double wedding.
We had double marriage. And so I had that Dodge car, and we picked them up on a Friday evening,
Uh-huh.
both of them, in Chatsworth,
Uh-huh.
me and Paul. And I drove to Calhoun down 225. It was a dirt road back then,
Uh-huh.
all the way to Calhoun. And we went to the ordinary, I believe it was. He's the ordinary down at Calhoun in the courthouse, but this was at night. We went to his house. He lived there in the middle of Calhoun on the left going south, in about the middle of the city of Calhoun. And we went to his house, and his wife served as as a witness. And we went inside, and he married us four at the same time.
Well, how special. I'm glad you did.
In the house there, and I Paula don't think had any money. we was a little scarce on money. Of course, I had more than he did, and I give that guy $10 for marrying us. Of course, we thought that was pretty cheap, you know, but he appreciated that.
Yeah.
$10 back then was buy quite a bit of things.
Yeah, sure.
$10 was. So we got married, and we went south on 41 to a motel and got a motel. And down there that night, and the next morning we got up. It was cold, and I had a jacket in the trunk of the car, and I gave it to Barbara. She's about to freeze.
What date was it?
September the 10th. That was the coldest September the 10th I believe I ever seen. It's cold weather. And then that night, and of course it warmed up. But then we went to the restaurant and ate breakfast, and no, we didn't. We come on back to her house and where her mother lived in Spring Place. And they wasn't there. They'd gone to work. She was working in Dalton. And Rembert was too, I think, at that time. Her husband, Bessie's husband. And so Barbara, she cooked us breakfast there at her house. She cooked gravy and biscuits and sausage, and she could cook then. She was 16.
She's always been able to cook, I guess.
She was a good cook then. She cooked good biscuits and gravy and sausage or something, or bacon. And we ate breakfast, and Paul, he said, I said, well, where you want to go on honeymoon? And Paul said, let's go to West Virginia. That's where we worked at up there, you know. He worked up there some too. And so I said, well, he didn't have no money, but I did. I don't know how much I had. I must have had quite a bit. I don't know. But anyway, we went to West Virginia. I drove that car to West Virginia, and I bought all the gas and all the food and everything. And we got a motel. Well, we didn't get up there. Yeah, we did that day. We got to Logan, West Virginia. That was 6 miles from Peach Creek where we worked. And we got to rent a motel. And I paid for the motel. And me and Paul and Geraldine and Barbara, we went to the rooms, and they didn't like the idea. They didn't like that motel. They didn't like it at all.
How come?
Yeah, I think it must have been a bad motel where they had all kinds of people. And they didn't like it, and so we didn't get no money back, and we left.
Aw.
Yeah, they didn't want to stay that night. And I said, well, let us stay. We got the motel. You couldn't get motels back then hardly. And so they said, no, they wasn't going to stay in that motel. It's a bad motel, but we didn't know it, you know, when I rented the rooms. So we left, and we had to stay in the car. Couldn't find another motel.
You stayed in the car?
We had to stay in the car all night that night.
Your first night on the honeymoon, you stayed in the
Like-
car.
No, we stayed the second night.
Okay.
We stayed in the motel the first night. Second night, we stayed in the car. Like
Oh.
froze. And that car up there in West Virginia, it's cold weather.
Sounds magical.
Yeah. And we couldn't find it. I was going to get another motel, never could find it. Never could find one.
So what did y'all do the third night?
Well, we left them up there and we come back to a town in Tennessee. And I rented a motel room for us there in Tennessee.
Uh-huh.
I forgot the name of that town. Morristown, Tennessee, or something like that. And they had a lot of motels there. It's a pretty large place. And so I rented a motel there, and we stayed there the next night. Boy, did we sleep.
I bet.
we was tired and wore out there from the night before. Sitting in the car, being in the car all night. Good night.
Rough start to a long, beautiful marriage.
Yeah. So we come on back to Barbara's grandmother's. We stayed down there. Me and Barbara stayed with her. She lived by herself and had that 6-room house there where she lived. And we stayed down there with her for 2 weeks.
Oh, okay. Well, that's...
And she'd get up and cook breakfast for us, Big Mama would. Boy, could she cook.
Uh-huh.
She'd cook some of the best breakfast, biscuits and gravy and stuff I ever ate in there.
Well, that
She was
made
as
up
good
for the
as
rest of it.
Mother
Uh-huh.
cooking breakfast. Yeah, Big Mama would. We stay, and she'd make some of the best coffee you ever drank. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing all of that. That's so nice to hear.